it was very easy. She was very honest. She told me about her cancer. She showed me that she had a single mastectomy. She had had multiple treatments, and that she had kept her cancer at bay. She was very upfront about it, and it captivated me more to meet her. And then when I first met her, there was just something about her that was just beautiful. It was more than surface beauty, that which it was certainly, but it was just her whole courageous choice to put herself out there, even though she was, fighting cancer, and to be a woman and to have the confidence and the desire and the awareness that she wanted to meet somebody and she wanted to find love again, even under the circumstances by which she was challenged by.
Hello and welcome to the season 1 finale of the How to Relationship podcast. The podcast where we speak to couples who've been together for, a good amount of time to find out how to make relationships work. I'm your host, Ana Lucia. And yes, I usually have couples on the podcast, but this is a very special episode. My guest today is Larry Indiviglia. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He is the author of 126 Days, 11 Minutes, Our Love Story, a beautiful book, which is the story of him, Larry, and Gayle, who both in their 60s, they met online, and just their beautiful love story. And this love story actually happened just last year. It's a pretty recent story, but the book is just so beautiful. I'm sorry if I say beautiful a lot, but it really is. It was so touching, and I highly recommend everyone to read it. So let's find out more about Larry and Gayle's love story right now. Hi, Larry. Thank you so much for joining me and being on the How to Relationship podcast.
It is a pleasure to be here. I'm honored and humbled to be a guest, and I'm looking forward to connecting, have a great conversation, and providing some value to your listeners. And I appreciate all the fine work you're doing via your podcast and your other programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I read, for those of you listening, I read his book. It's beautiful. I really recommend everyone read it. It's not too long, so if you have some time, you can definitely, get that going. So for those who have not read the book, can you talk a little bit about what 126 Days, 11 Minutes is about?
Sure. And thanks for asking. The backstory of the book, 126 Days, 11 Minutes, Our Love Story, is about two actively aging seniors in their 60s, yes, in their 60s, who meet online on an online dating site, and against perhaps all odds, fall madly in love, because one of them, in this case Gayle, is battling and had been battling stage 4 breast cancer for 4+ years, but they are captivated by each other, first phone call and then their first meeting, and decide to live in the today rather than worry about the yesterdays or the tomorrows. We had both been married before. We were both single. And to profoundly and unconditionally love each other. And what we find through the 126 days, which our love story lasted until Gayle transitioned, was that it was worthwhile and possible to love with loss rather than never to have loved at all. And it's a book about life more than anything else. It's also a book about hope, optimism, fun, adventure, and ultimately transitioning to another level of consciousness once our earthly stay is finished, in that case with Gayle. But there's something for everybody in this particular book. It's a book about life, and to write a love story after one who has lived it, and I did live it with Gayle, it was a very, very, very profound experience, and I wanted to share that with the world.
Awesome. So one thing I noticed the first time that you guys actually saw each other in person, like when you were in the car, and then just like the way you were like describing her, I don't know, I could just like feel like how much you loved her. It was so weird. I was like, I was so touched. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know. There was something about the way you wrote that I could just like, I was like already like, I could just feel it. It was wonderful.
Sometimes you get captivated by a person for a lot of different reasons. I had the phone call with Gayle the night prior. It was a Monday night. We spent a little over an hour on the phone. And, it was very easy. She was very honest. She told me about her cancer. She showed me that she had a single mastectomy. She had multiple treatments, and that she had kept her cancer at bay. She was very upfront about it. And it captivated me more to meet her. And then when I first met her, there was just something about her that was just beautiful. It was more than surface beauty, that which it was, certainly, but it was just her whole courageous choice to put herself out there, even though she was, fighting cancer, and to be a woman and to have the confidence and the desire and the awareness that she wanted to meet somebody and she wanted to find love again, even under the circumstances by which she was challenged by. And when I did I talk about it in the book, she had taken a couple of wrong turns, and I was put my thumb out in hitchhiking motion. And as soon as I got in her car, it was very relaxed. It was like I had known her for a long time. And that's special, when to find that physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual connection with a significant other. It's powerful. It's not easy to find that. It's not easy.
Yeah, I definitely, that is special. It's very rare. That's something that I love when it happens, but it sadly doesn't happen that often. And if I read correctly, apparently by like day 7, it seemed like you already knew you loved her. Is that true?
Yeah.
Or you?
I did. I did. She had a great spirit. Gayle had a great spirit, and she was a colorful woman. She had been married 3 times. She was a world-class photographer, and she was an Argentinian tango dancer. She was a very eclectic, very colorful, very joyful, very exuberant woman, and had life experience. And cancer tried to take that away from her, and she would not let that happen. She did what she could once her diagnosis, almost 5 years when I met her, is 4+ years. But she just said, I am going to continue to live as best I can under these conditions, and I will continue to be a woman. And so she had a great soul. She had a great spirit. She had a great soul. And it's just something that captivated me in wanting to discover more and more about her. And I had never really experienced that with a woman. I was married for 25 years. I'd been divorced 9 years, had a couple of relationships prior to Gayle, which were respectful, but weren't going to be long-term. And Gayle gave me the confidence that, hey, there's a woman out there, and even though they may be struggling, in her case, it happened to be cancer, it's beneficial to take a risk and to experience it, because if you don't, you may lose out on having an experience that was just something that you will take with you the rest of your life, as it turned out to me with Gayle. So yeah, I did. I knew there was something special about her.
Wow. Yeah, I could kind of relate, because the one time I've been in love, I kind of fell for that person. For me, like, it was like a month. After like a month, I was like, I would totally marry this person if they wanted. Like, I knew. And I've talked to people before, and they think that it's kind of impossible or crazy. Like, you can't love someone that fast. You have to know them for at least a whole year or something. I'm just like, I think sometimes people just know, like, you don't have to put like a certain, only after a year, then you can like be in love. So
yeah, and it's a great point, because society sometimes puts all these rules You have to have a certain amount of money. You have to look a certain way. You have to have a certain amount of a certain career. You know what I mean? Like all these things have to line up. And if they're not just so, then don't get involved. It's not worth it. And what it comes down to is self-awareness and doing some personal work and being self-aware. One of the things about Gayle, what she told me, is to love somebody unconditionally, without reservations, without judgments, without conditions, without certain expectations.
Mm-hmm.
You must love yourself unconditionally first. So if you love yourself unconditionally first, you will be more able to do that with a man, with a woman, with a significant other, whatever it happens to be, because you unconditionally love yourself first. Sounds egotistical, but it's really not, because then you could extend that to another person because you've accepted and respected yourself, and you love yourself unconditionally based on who you are and the journey you've taken. So that was another thing I really learned from Gayle that was really great, was that she had this awareness about what unconditional love was and why it was important to experience that. Yeah.
And for those of you who have not read the book, this story, love story, actually was pretty recent. Happened last year.
Yeah, last year at this time, I was seeing Gayle. It started January 6th, 2020, and ultimately it ended on May 12th, 2020. So it was during this last year, the COVID year, which is still with us. And, it was interesting how that, and there was cancer involved with it. But I think that when something happens, people have asked me, well, the book came out fairly quickly. Emotion can work for you in relationships, and it could work for you in other endeavors. And sometimes it could work against you if you're so emotionally distraught or, into something. In my case, it worked for me because everything was fresh in my mind, and I felt that I really wanted to share this with the world and the lessons that I learned from Gayle. And, frankly, there's many Gayles and Larrys out there. It doesn't have to be cancer. It could be other things, other forms of struggle that one or the other is undergoing. And the other person comes in to try to help them through it and to provide some hope. I think hope is such a huge word, a big word, to provide hope that things will get better and that maybe there is a cure, maybe there is healing. But I will say, in last year when I first met Gayle, I knew she was struggling and she was battling. I never thought she was going to transition in 4 months. I never was like, okay, and she didn't. She really felt she was going to beat it in a lot of ways, and she had different levels of success. But it is interesting when you meet somebody on such a level that you decide quickly that you do want to share it with the world, and I'm glad I did.
How soon after she passed it were you like, you decided you wanted to tell the story, and what was the motivation behind wanting to share it?
Yeah, insightful question, because a lot of people ask me that, and it was kind of like the perfect storm in a way. 3 things. One, I was grieving, and I wanted to write as a form of relieving some of that grief, and then as a catharsis, to kind of get through it. I felt that just reviewing what had just went on in 4 months, it was fresh in my mind. I do a lot of journaling, a lot of detailed journaling every day. So I had voicemails, I had texts from Gayles, I had poems, I had letters, I had my own journal notes. And I used all that in wanting to get those lessons out there. Really wanted to share what I learned from her. And thirdly, and maybe ironically in a strange way, COVID, shut down March 12th. Gayle transitioned May 12th. And it gave me the time. I couldn't work as much. My personal life was curtailed. My professional life was curtailed, all of us on some level. So it gave me the time to write. So I felt an urgency. Let me use this time to write, to get it done. I wasn't paranoid about catching COVID myself, but I said, you never know. So it permitted me the time and the energy to get this book going. Also, for you writers out there and aspiring writers, I had an accountability partner, Kelly Watson, who owns Scripter Publishing, who helped me publish the book. It is a self-published book. She was my accountability partner. And every Monday, the book is written in days. There's 126 days. Each day has a title and a theme, as you know, because you read it. And every Monday, I had to give Kelly 20 days of writing every Monday morning. So I had that accountability, and I followed that through 7 weeks. And the book was written in 7 weeks, all 126 days, and then ultimately the 11 minutes. So that's kind of how it came to pass. And I felt if I didn't do it then, I might never do it. And I also wanted to move forward with my life on some level. Gayle had told me when she was in hospice, Larry, I don't want you moping around. I know you're going to love again. You're not that young a guy at 65, so don't waste 5 years moping around because I'm gone. So I remembered those words, and I did want to move forward in some way. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, like, it's so beautiful and just lovely that you have, like, this whole experience with Gayle you have in this book now. Like, it's, it's just, like, it's a way for her to just kind of live on her memory, live on forever.
Yeah, she wanted, and I shared in the book on day 51, you may remember, she was an accomplished photographer, and she had 3 larger coffee table books, for photographs, 3 professional books. And she had mentioned on that day 51, which I shared, that she thought she wanted to write a 4th book about her cancer journey. And she was going to title it My Enlightened Journey, Loving, Dancing, and Living with Stage 4 Breast Cancer. Now, she never got a chance to write that book, but I think it went in my subconscious. And then what happened was, and let me be clear, 126 days, 11 minutes is not an autobiography of Gayle. It is not the book she would have written, I don't believe. But what it is, you get to know Gayle. You get to know her as a person, as the loving person she was, as the mystical person she was, as the dancer, as the lover, as the friend, and just so many more things in her life. And that was important for me to share in honoring her courage, her life, and that could also inspire others, because it inspired me, and I felt if it inspired me, her life, that it could inspire some others, maybe battling cancer or just struggling. It doesn't necessarily have to be a cancer situation. Yeah.
Yeah, she seemed like such a lovely person, just definitely someone you want to meet, and just seemed very, I don't know, warm and loving, and just, I love how it seems like she could just kind of relate to anyone, talk to anyone. And
yeah, she was really, and maybe in such a way, I think she was like that anyway. I mentioned in the book that Gayle had a high IQ, intellectual quotient, and a high EQ, emotional quotient. And sometimes you don't find that in a person. You find maybe somebody who's like got a super high IQ, but emotionally they're not as developed, or the opposite. They have a super high EQ and maybe their IQ isn't as high. Gayle had both. She went to USC. She had majored in French and Russian studies. She was fluent in both languages. She was very, very bright, but then she also had that emotional side to her. She was a Virgo, so Earth Maiden. And I think that she had this connection to nature. And I talk about that in the book a lot, how she had that connection to grounding in nature. She always liked to go out on trail hikes. She loved to have her bare feet, sand between her toes. She always liked to look at the night sky. She had a lot of, she understood astrology. I think she viewed life, and I shared in the book, you're born before you come out of the womb, you have an earthly experience, and then you transition to a higher level of consciousness. And Gayle kind of had all of that. And she was a very, very kind person, very good with people. And I think also her profession helped her. She was a photographer. You got to be able to relate with people, put them at ease, find out about them, because then that enhances the photography experience, right? And the images that she's going to basically generate with her camera and what she's seeing through the lens. So I think she was very worldly and aware that way. And she was a lot of fun. She had a great sense of humor. And I think that comes out in the book as well. Yeah.
And I love how I'm really into music too. So I love how a lot of the chapters, they had names of different songs. And I love, oldies and like rock and Beatles and all that stuff. So I'm like, wow, she seems like, I would.
She did. Really she liked rhythm and blues. She liked old Motown vocals. She liked rock and roll, certainly. The beat. She grew up with the Beatles. I share that in the book, and some of the particular songs that she enjoyed. But she also liked the tango music because she danced to it. She also liked ballet because she danced to ballet. So she had an appreciation for music, not only to listen to, but to move to. And, it's interesting as you go through the book, as you have, there's kind of like the sub story in Gayle's life, how dancing was a part of it. Because I think when she was a younger person, she wanted to be a professional dancer. Her career didn't turn out that way, but she had dancing as a avocation. She danced all the time, and she was in great shape. She had these like dancer's feet. She had like really strong feet, and so that that part of her, moving to music, listening to music, it was part of her spirit, and it really was important to her. Music was an important aspect of her life. It really was. Yeah.
So this is just me, just like a random question, but I was just really curious, like, because maybe it's your journaling, or I don't know, because when you're, in the book, you're describing her outfits on the different dates and stuff. Yeah. And I was just wondering, like, how does he remember her outfits? Because I sometimes don't even remember what I wore 2 days ago. I was like, do you write them down like every day?
I wrote them in my journal. Yeah. Okay. Gayle always had this look about her. She wasn't, she wasn't a clothes horse necessarily, but she liked clothes. However, where she was at, and after her cancer treatments and stuff like that, her body changed. She was a full over 5'7" woman much of her life. And then as she aged in some of the cancer treatments, she had neck surgery. She shrunk. She was shorter by about 3 inches. When I knew her, she was 5'4.5" or so. So some of her clothes, she had an awareness about clothes, but they got very functional. She wanted to be comfortable. She was a California girl. She grew up in California, and she went to high school in, I think, Scottsdale, Arizona. But for the most part, she grew up out in California. So, she liked sun. She liked warm weather. Sandals were cool. She had professional dress when she was a photographer, but she had always this funky look. So it was always kind of interesting what she would wear. And it was just something that I was always captivated by. She had the Serengeti tan glasses, and her hair was always wild, and her blue eyes, and she had Converse sneakers, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun that way, but I did write it down when that's how I remembered. Yeah.
Okay. And that's interesting because about her going to school, because I went to school in Scottsdale. I graduated college there. I lived in San Diego for a year, so I knew like Torrey Pines, all the places we were talking about. I hiked there. Yeah, so I could kind of see it more vividly what you guys were talking about. So that was really, what you were talking about in the book. So that was really cool. I could kind of relate in that aspect.
And a lot of the venues we went to, a lot of people asked me like, God, you guys were like on this huge adventure in some ways. And it wasn't because I had a stopwatch on Gayle's life. I didn't. I didn't do that, and I don't think she did that either. I know she didn't do that. However, each day was a different day, and we wanted to embellish each day. And the book shares each day in a different way, a different theme. What was the focus for that day? Some of the days were exciting. Some of the days not so exciting. Some of the days she might have been in pain, or not as healthy. But each day, had its unique purpose and how we approach life. And like I said, the book, it's kind of about life. It's a book about life, ultimately transitioning, and then how we approached it. Each day I wasn't trying to think of how to upstage that next day. It was just things that naturally happen. And the other thing too, and I share in the book, and I don't share it right away. I just want to make sure it was in context. Cancer took a lot away from Gayle, especially a lot of her financial resources. In LA, she had to close her business down, and she had made the decision to come to San Diego to fight her cancer. And when she was very, very sick early on, and I didn't know her then, she lived with her mother. Her mother reached out to her and really gave her a place where all Gayle needed to do was to heal and fight her cancer and not worry about bills and being thrown out on the street, not having a place to sleep. And that was something that meant a lot to Gayle. However, when I knew her, she wanted to get out. She wanted to do things. She wanted to experience life. She wanted to have fun, and we did our best to do that. And I share that in the book, and especially through the first 65 days, as you know. And then, before the cancer came back in a big way. But we did have a lot of fun, and it was good. And especially if you're familiar with Southern California, San Diego, some of the spots were they were a lot of fun.
It's so beautiful. I love San Diego. Do you by any chance still keep in touch with her family?
Yeah, I spoke about Jim, who was Gayle's mom's boyfriend in the book. I describe him a lot. I do talk to Gayle's mom frequently, as far as just keeping in touch with him, with her boyfriend and Gayle's mom in particular. And then occasionally I'll talk with her brother and some of her friends. So some of her friends who were mentioned in the book who are very close, I do try to keep in touch when I can. And, that's the beauty of social media sometimes too. What you share, people feel connected to you. So way, shape, or form. I do. And I feel that that we worked as a team, and I share that in the book, and I think you know this having read it, to get Gayle through that last stage of her life so that she did it on her terms as much as we possibly could provide. And we all contributed to that in our own special ways. We did, yeah.
Oh, that's one thing I loved about just I don't know, your just the way you were with her. You weren't, you thought about maybe what she would have liked instead of just sometimes we think so much about what would work for us or what we want, but and then you forget to think about what the other person wants. It might not be what you want, but you're trying to respect her, what she might want and stuff like that.
Yeah. So. And when you become, I turned, and it's I shared in the book, and I became her caregiver in a way. And I'm saying advocate, come almost like a patient advocate. But during those 7 days when she was in the hospital, before we were able to get her into that inpatient 4-bed hospice, Sharp Hospice Foundation, the Parkview home, and I openly state that in the book numerous times because it was such an awesome place, and how they provided her peace and a pain-free transition. And when you go through that, COVID really And I share, as you know, a lot about the in-hospice or inpatient hospice experience. When I was there every day, I couldn't really, other than the staff there, I had to be in Gayle's room because of COVID. We couldn't go through the home like you could, because they have a common area, a TV room. You could talk to other family members and commiserate. There was none of that. So I had to be totally present with Gayle. Sometimes I was in a room 5 hours, sometimes shorter than that, as I share in the book. So I wanted to be present and what would be important. I found that a person who's transitioning still wants to have contact with real life of what's going on. And that was the beauty of that inpatient hospice. It was a garden view. You could see the birds, you could see the flowers, you could get fresh air. You were in a environment that you still had a touch of reality with the world. And then I tried to bring in things to Gayle that I thought would help her. Some days I was more successful than others. And then other days were more challenging, as I shared, when somebody transitions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And one reason I want people to read this book is, something that stood out to me was your text messages to each other. They were just so beautiful. And I'm just like, why do people not text like this? That would be amazing. It's just so
handsome, and I called her beautiful. That started, the first date when she told me I was more handsome in person than my pictures on the online dating site. For one who's a Leo, that could be dangerous, because we sometimes Leos could be vain. But in any case, she always called me handsome, and I always called her beautiful, and that was from the start. And that wasn't contrived. That was in how we addressed each other a lot. And I think when you do that, there's benefits to that. There's really benefits to that, and that you really hold each other in high regard. And it feels good to the person receiving. And I think it feels good to the person who gives as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, also just like technical kind of stuff, like you write in full sentences, whereas like a lot of young people, LOL, BRBs. I'm like, yeah, I'm not like that. I was like, I like to write out the full word, use punctuation, proper grammar. It's just really frustrating. So I'm just like, I was like, if people texted like this more, that would be amazing. So if you want some tips on wooing through text, read the book.
It's important. And she, when you're emotionally connected, that's important with a person, especially somebody you're dating, somebody you love. That's more apt to come out that way, rather if there's a wall, somehow there. If you practice that, well, first of all, you feel moved to, and you're emotionally connected with the person. So, positive affirmations, right, for the person. A lot of times, love languages, right? Chapman's book, 5 Love Languages. Some people like to hear positive words of affirmation or touch or whatever it happens to be, and positive affirmations are good. So we practice those for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys do some really just really romantic things. I liked how you read each other love letters. I was like, oh my God, like so emotional. Like that was so beautiful.
Oh, on Valentine's Day, yeah. That was,
and then you dropped off the card at her front door, and how did you learn to just be so romantic?
Well, a lot of people have asked me, in your interaction with Gayle, were you making up for something that you hadn't done in your past? Like maybe you felt guilty because, your marriage ultimately didn't work out after 25 years. There was many good years we had, but ultimately we broke up. And so, were you trying to make up for that? And I don't really think so. I think when you really click with a person and there's a certain chemistry, and I think the universe brought it in. I think God and the universe brings people together for a reason. Sometimes it could last, a relationship can last for a long, long time. Sometimes it's a short period of time, as mine was with Gayle, but they're not random. They're always for a reason. And I believe Gayle, when I look back on it, gave me hope again that I could have a full love and complete relationship with a woman. And I think prior to that, I had my doubts, whether I could do that again. Was I capable of doing that? Would I ever get the feeling to want to do that? So in some cases, she broke my heart open to be able to do that, to be inspired to do that, not just based on the choice she made to love me, but also by just the person she was. And I think any man or woman, or whatever the relationship is between man, woman, man, and it could be, it could be different associations for that matter, is you'll find that when there's true chemistry, it comes naturally. It's not forced. You just want to do things because you feel that strongly about the person. So it's like, oh, this week I better get her flowers, or this week I better write her a card. And sometimes it just hits into the moment and you do something because it's organic, it's from the heart. I do say in the book, follow your heart. The heart doesn't have any questions. And I think society sometimes tells us that it does have questions, but if you follow it, you'll find that you can have a tremendous experience, love experience, than if you question your heart too much. So, yeah.
It's a good lesson right there. So like you said, you were kind of like her, patient advocate. So what advice would you have for anyone else who might have to kind of go through a similar thing?
Yes. Gayle always said she always wanted to stand in her truth. She felt she wanted to stand in her truth all her life. She never, that was a conviction she had. She never negotiated that. And in that process, she asked me a lot of things when she was in the hospital trying to make a decision where she wanted to transition. She didn't want to die in my home. She didn't want to die in her mom's home. She didn't want to put that burden on her mother. And she didn't want to put that burden on me to have her dying in my place and then always remembering that that's where Gayle passed away. She just didn't want to do that. So as a result, each patient has different needs. And sometimes when you get into a hospital setting and all those professionals try to do their very best, especially with COVID, to place a person to make sure they could transition peacefully and without pain. And I do believe that. That said, not everybody's the same. So my recommendation is, if you get into a situation I was with Gayle, listen to her needs, listen to what she feels she wants, irrespective of what you think is right for her, and help he or she make that come to pass. Because I could have said, Gayle, I insist you're going to die in my home. Well, if that's not what Gayle wants, then that's not the right decision. It's about the person who's transitioning and experiencing that phase of his or her life. So do listen to that. And even though you may not agree, do your best to help that person make that happen. I think the other thing is, in being a patient advocate, you don't have to do it alone. And I share this in the book. There will be people that emerge that help you. And there was many I mentioned in the process of trying to get her into that hospice and how that came about, the Sharp Hospice home at Parkview. The people that approached me, because I had my moments, and I share them in the book, especially the 44 days Gayle was in hospice. The challenges I had. Was I doing enough? Was I doing too much? The doubts I had. And I had my times of weakness, and there was key people that helped me, friends and associates and work colleagues Gayle's mom's boyfriend all came in and did their part to help me get through it so that I could help Gayle get through it.
Mm.
And, I think finally, too, as an advocate, remember as a person's transitioning that there's true angels in the hospice community. The professionals that work there, whether it's an in-home setting or in Gayle's case, an inpatient setting, that really, really are dedicated to what they're doing. And they really are helpful in helping you to get through the process as a caregiver, and then also to provide compassion and as much pain-free as possible transition for the patient, and never take those folks for granted. I mentioned them highly in the book and many times.
Mm-hmm.
My last point about being an advocate, the person, in this case, Gayle, you cannot provide peace to that person. They have to find their peace, but you also have to find your peace first. If you're peaceful, if you're at peace, that will help the patient who's transitioning and the person find their peace emotionally and mentally. You can provide a physical comfort with palliative and pain-free medicine and care, but that person is still going through emotional and mental pain and having to find peace before they transition. So those were some of the things I learned. Yeah.
It's good tips. And yeah, I felt that Parkview seemed like a really, like if I needed that or knew someone that needed that service, I was like, okay, that seems like a really nice place to go.
Yeah, and there's only 3 of them. Sharp Foundation only has 3. There's 2 4-bed facilities. Parkview's one of them. There's a 6-bed facility. So that's only 8. That's only 14 beds. And then I think they're going to try to open up a 4th one, but it's all based on donations. So if the book could help Sharp Hospice Foundation in any way, especially the Hospice Foundation wing of it, of Sharp's, then, I've tried to help them as much as I can, because they've certainly helped Gayle and I. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So where do you think the, medical community, where do you think they, really excelled, or, maybe some other things that they could improve on?
The medical community does their very, very best, and I think initially get the person out of pain if they come in the emergency room, do their best to do the diagnostics, to get a good diagnosis of what's going on, an honest and compassionate prognosis. Don't hide the truth from somebody, and then trying to work with the person as best they can to go to the next step, to provide next alternatives. What is that? Gayle's particular case, was it going to be a hospice in-home? Well, that situation wasn't realistic. Is it going to be an inpatient hospice like Parkview? Is it going to be a boarding house? They have care homes that have assistants there. They're not full-blown inpatient hospices, but they're for people who don't have a home to go to. Is it assisted in dying? Now, the traditional medical facilities do not counsel you on aid in dying. That's as if you want to take your own life, okay? And it's legal in California and other states, but there's rules and procedures and approaches that have to be followed. Gayle was interested in getting the information. She decided not to go that route for some reasons. I share that in the book. But overall, the medical community will do their very best to really ensure that your next step will be right for you. They could only do so much. And I think sometimes they could get overwhelmed, especially when COVID was going on. There was a lot of stress and strain, and sometimes the professionals you work with, they could only do so much. And then that's where you have to make the decision, okay, how persistent do I need to be to stick with my guns, and knowing that this is what the patient needs, my friend needs, my loved one needs. And you have to be willing to stay with that and to speak up, because they're running a model to get people care. Once traditional care is no longer an option, in Gayle's case it wasn't, they gave her 2 weeks to live, then they have to move her on and want to move her on. So that's some of the things they do well in my experience. And they're all well-intentioned, but there's limits to every organization. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So who can benefit from reading your book?
Wow. It's a book about lives, so I could say almost anybody, but specifically people actively aging seniors, for sure, who think that love is not possible. It's never too late to fall in love and to experience love. So those people for sure. I think people struggling. They could be cancer survivors. It could be people who are undergoing treatment like Gayle was. Maybe they've lost confidence. Maybe they feel that it's not possible to love again or to meet somebody to love because of their condition. Well, there is. And making a choice to put yourself out there is possible. And I think the book really shares that in powerful choice that Gayle made. I think it's for men and women to give them inspiration on how they could treat each other and relate to each other. You mentioned the text messaging that Gayle and I had. We always had a very respectful relationship, honest relationship. It was based on honesty, then trust, then an intimacy, and then romance. And that was really what love is all about, being honest. And so it's for people who might be searching for how do I meet somebody? Well, you can meet somebody online. For people who are dating online, it's possible. There's powerful experiences you could have on that. So if people are out there dating online and maybe haven't had a great experience yet with that particular way of meeting people, it's possible. I still remember Gayle's profile, looking for a man who is fulfilled and accomplished in life, who lives 20 miles from me, with a sense of humor, a sense of sensuality, sensitivity, kindness, and who feels like home. That was her description of what she was looking for. I said, I think I'll sign up for this. I think I could qualify. So there's somebody out there for everybody. So for people who are on dating sites of any age, there's a person out there for you if you're open to it. And I think that where you are energetically is who you're going sometimes to attract energetically. And I do certainly believe that Gayle and I met at a stage of our life that we were able to elevate both of our lives in different ways. Who else is it for? For people, grief counselors, for hospice workers, for people who work with people maybe in transitioning, to get them a little bit of an insight about how loved ones could also help them do their particular jobs. And then for anybody who wants to be inspired that there's good in the world, there's hope in the world, and that there's kindness in the world, not only for one another, but as a society. I felt my whole experience with Gayle was one of finding people who are kind and considerate and compassionate, and that it is out there, okay? And you could experience it in a lot of different ways, because sometimes right now with society the way it is, there's a lot of negativity. This was positive. And if I would leave them out, I would be unfair. The Argentine tango community, the dancers. The picture on the cover is one of Gayle's professional photographs of a tango dancing couple and one of the milongas, as they call it, and how art imitates life, how the embrace and the importance of tango dancing, how the man leads and the woman responds, how that's a snapshot of life, and how it was a snapshot and a metaphor for the relationship Gayle and I had. So for any of the Argentine tango community out there, I think you will appreciate how Gayle loved that community and how you were all a big part of her life, and how tango, at least Argentinian tango, plays into the whole relationship we had. So for that's some of the people who could benefit from the book. Yeah.
And that kind of leads to the next question I was going to ask you, if you have taken tango, like...
Well, you know, it's interesting you asked that question. I've taken ballroom dancing before, but I didn't know Argentinian tango. And with COVID now, it's been impossible to take tango lessons. And one of Gayle's closest friends, Carol, is a tango dancer, her and her husband, in San Diego. So she's always said, Larry, when you're ready and we get through this COVID stuff, let me know. So it is something I do want to pursue at some point. And I was captivated by it when I went to that one night, and I shared in the book when Gayle invited me to the Milonga. And she told me, she goes, look, I'm going to be dancing with multiple men. I said, I don't care. I want to go. I want to see what it's about. And I shared that in the book about the Milonga in San Diego and how it was so interesting. It was such an interesting, there was a dance within the dance, you know, the actual dance movements. I was trying to look at steps and trying to figure it out, but it seemed like it was random, how the movements and how the woman would respond to the male lead. And it was very, very interesting to me. And it does take some lessons and take some experience to do it. But at some point, yeah, I believe I will. Yeah, especially when I retire, I'm still working actively and be able to spend more time with it. Yeah.
Awesome. That's one thing I also like. I feel like I could relate to a lot of things in the book, because like just little things, you know, with San Diego and the music, and then tango. I was actually planning on starting tango lessons last year, around March, and then COVID happened. So I never got to start my tango lessons. But it is a beautiful dance. Like when I've seen tango dancers, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to
and it's based on the embrace, you know, especially in Argentinian tango. It's based on the embrace. The male leads, but the woman responds. She doesn't blindly follow. It's not just step, 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 follow. It's the embrace and how the male leads, and then the woman responds. If the male leads strongly, the woman responds strongly. The male doesn't lead real strongly, the woman's not going to respond to a weak lead. So, you know, there's that dynamic, and you could actually, you know, take that as a metaphor to life in a relationship. I'm not saying the man has to lead all the time, but many women would like to see a man take the initiative on certain things, and the woman could certainly take the initiative on certain things. But, you know, that's kind of, people like that. I think women like that. I you know, not being a woman, but in that part of our relationship, Gayle liked that. She was happy and willing to let me lead, and then she responded. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I like about it too. Is I'm one of those that I like the men to take the lead. But I don't know, especially a lot of younger guys. They don't. Yeah,
well, they might need a lot of lessons. Make sure they're trainable.
Yeah.
Send them to the tango teachers first. But you know, it's you know, the nice thing about our discussion today, the book ultimately ends with Gayle, you know, transitioning, but it's not a downer story. And, you know, and I say that not being selfish. I'm not the person who transitioned. Gayle transitioned. She's no longer with us. So I don't want to diminish that. Okay. I'm blessed to still be living. I'm also a cancer survivor, but my cancer was not even close to what Gayle had to go through. So I say that in all due respect to Gayle. But, you know, when it's a book of joy, and it's a book about choice, and it's a book about inspiration, and it's a book about how embracing life till the end is a very powerful choice that a person makes. and about truth. Everything Gayle said, everything she touched, everything she did was about standing in her truth all the time. And she was able to transition with her truth intact because she was able to transition in a place that she really chose based on what she needed and how her journey here on earth was going to end. So yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, that's the dynamic of the book. Everybody tells me it's hard to put down, even though it's 342 pages. It's quick. Each day, as you know, is about 2 pages, 2.5 pages at best, at most. Yeah. And it flows pretty well. So yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't stop. I was like, after one day, like I'm like, oh, I don't know what's gonna happen. So yeah, it's definitely hard to put down. And I was gonna ask you too, do you have a favorite memory of Gayle? Or you probably have more than one, but maybe one that kind of like sticks in your mind.
Yeah, I do. Maybe 2 of them. I remember when we went to that dance club and she ended up freelancing on the dance floor. She had this black dress on and she was just enjoying herself. I was dancing with her part of the time, but then other part of the time she just like was solo going at it. And it was just, she wasn't in pain. She was happy. She was relating to the music. Even the lead guitarist was like mesmerized by her. But I remember that moment. It was just purely joyful for her. And I would be standing by and just watching her that night, I remember. And then I remember the night, it was, and I shared it. It was a rainy night and we were at Torrey Pines beach and it was raining and it was a dark blue sky and the moon was kind of obscured by the dark clouds and we were knee deep in water and walking in bare feet in the sand. And it was just a special kissing down there. It was just a special moment that you just want to kind of hold. I'll always remember that. I'll always remember when we were out there that night and just totally captured in the moment in nature and not worried about anything else. And those 2 in particular, and those were good times. And that's how I remember Gayle most. Not so much the end, and transitioning has its own characteristics, but I remember that about her living. And she was about life and about wanting to live and living a very vibrant and a very dynamic and a very colorful and joyful life. And cancer limited her somewhat, but she never lived in its shadow. And that's the one thing I'll always remember about her too. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So we're at the end. That's so crazy.
It goes quick.
Time flies by so fast.
Just so for your listeners, 126 Days, 11 Minutes, Our Love Story is available on Amazon in Kindle or paperback. And I'm happy to say the audio version will come out in February, hopefully before Valentine's Day. And there's 2 voice actors that are Larry and Gayle. I did not do my own voice. I felt it would have been weird with another woman. Okay. You know what I mean? I just didn't feel emotionally right. So the audiobook does come out on Amazon's Audible in February. So
I might have to listen to it again just to hear and really feel like.
Yeah, it's they did a really good job. The voice actors did a good job. I had 2 senior voice actors because we're seniors. And I wasn't going to get a younger person such as yourself to be Gayle. That would have been not quite apropos, but I'm looking forward to that. And
your other social media?
Yeah, social media at Larry Indiviglia, as far as on Facebook, at Larry Insight, IND site, at Larry Insight on Twitter, and I'm also on LinkedIn. I have a lot of connections on LinkedIn. So anybody who wants to reach out to me directly, just email me, lindiviglia@gmail.com. So that's a mouthful if you put it in the show notes.
Yes.
LINDIVIGIA@gmail.com. And I will answer. I've gotten a number of emails. I answer all of them. And I've been very humbled and very pleased with the book so far, how it's been accepted. And it's an honor to Gayle. Her life made a difference. And maybe in ways she didn't realize. So.
Oh, well, I'm just honored for that you came on here and that I got to read the book. Is just, it really, because right now it's kind of a hard time for a lot of people, and sometimes it is kind of hard to have hope in humanity at times with the negativity, but that just kind of the book was a nice, just, yeah, it definitely gave me some hope and brought some joy into my life.
It's about choices and, how to relationship. There's probably some good lessons in there, but it comes that you must be open to it and you must be committed to it. And I think when those two things are there, good things will happen. And it certainly did with me and Gayle. So one of the most profound experiences of my life. And I'll certainly never forget it. And, it would always live in this book. So that's the nice thing.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, Gary.
You're very
Larry,
welcome.
I'm so sorry. I think because of Gayle, I combined Gayle and Larry, and I said Gary. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I do that a lot, but thank you again, everyone. Check out all his links. They're all going to be in the show notes and video description. And please do yourself a favor and read his book. All right.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time today, and I really love all the work you're doing. So Continue on.
Thank you. Bye. So that is it for episode 10 of season 1, the season 1 finale of the How to Relationship podcast. Thanks again so much to Larry for being on. It was so great speaking with you. And again, please, anyone listening, check out the book. I will have a link to the book in the show notes and video description. You can get it on paperback, Kindle, and as Larry stated, it will soon be available on Audible. It's amazing. I'm probably, even though I already read the book, I definitely want to check out the audio version just so I can, so the story can kind of come to life more for me. I think that would be just a wonderful thing to experience. And again, check out all of Larry's links in the show notes and video description as well. I will have a bonus episode for season 1 coming up, so stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, between season 1 and season 2 of the podcast, I do plan on doing some giveaways, hopefully more than one, plural. All right. So if you want to have a chance at winning any of those things I'm going to give away, please follow the podcast on Instagram at How to Relationship Podcast. And you can also find the podcast on Facebook as well. And if you've gotten, something out of this podcast, it would really help us out if you could just, leave a review on Apple, iTunes, just wherever you review podcasts. It really helps us out because there are so many different relationship podcasts. So anything you could leave on there, even if it's just 5 stars and just one word, great. I don't know. It would really, really help us out. So, and if you have been listening throughout this whole season, wow, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I hope you've gotten a lot out of it. I definitely have. I've learned so much from all these couples. I cannot wait for season 2. And yeah, thank you for welcoming us, this podcast, into your life. Okay, I'll shut up now. Again, thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Ana Lucia, and hopefully I'll see you next time on season 2 of the How to Relationship podcast.